Hi, I wanted to make a video today to start a sort of log of my recovery from a vestibular disorder which I have had for 8 months. Um, I have made some significant progress recently, and I found that when I was at my lowest and things looked really bleak, videos online like this one really helped me see that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that recovery was possible, and that I wasn't alone. And I'm hoping that I can do that in these videos that I'm going to make to chart my progress to get better from my vestibular disorder. I will probably just give a little overview of what I went through or have been through in the last 8 months, and then any thoughts I might have. And then from there, we might just do some more focused videos over the next few months, and I'll talk about how my recovery is going. Although I'm going to be talking about myself quite a lot in this video, this really isn't about me as such. It's about anyone else going through the same kind of thing that I have been through. So I want to get the backstory out of the way and kind of explain where I've been, what's happened to me, and then maybe draw upon the experiences I've had to kind of give some tips and advice. So this all started 8 months ago. Well, it really probably started 9 months ago. In September of 2019, I had a vertigo attack at work. It came out of nowhere. I just sat down to eat something, and the room started spinning around me, and it spun for about 2 or 3 minutes maximum, and I felt pretty nauseous for about 3 hours afterwards, but then it went. There were no after effects that I noticed, at least, and I thought nothing of it. I thought maybe it was like a low blood sugar thing or something like that, so I continued with my life. And yeah, I would say within a week or so I'd forgotten it had even happened, and it wasn't until the end of October that things started to get a bit weird. I wasn't experiencing vertigo. It was more like I was on a boat, or that feeling you get when you've been on a boat and you've gotten onto dry land. I had sea legs, I suppose, and there was like a visual swaying, and I found it very hard to walk anywhere without feeling like somebody was pulling me back. It was quite worrying, so I went to A&E, and they told me it was probably labyrinthitis, and that there is a drug called Circ that you can take called it's a beta histamine, and yeah, you'll feel better for taking it. It relieves the symptoms, and within 3 weeks' time, you'll feel better. Looking back on it, I probably didn't have labyrinthitis, because labyrinthitis, from what I have read, is more a continuous vertigo feeling that lasts, as I said, 3 weeks. But it's more about that room spinning than it is about the disequilibrium of walking around. But anyway, I didn't really take a lot of time off work for it. I took about 2 days sick, maybe 3. And part of the reason for that was because whilst I was indoors and there were less visual stimuluses, more familiar, comfortable surroundings, I didn't really feel the symptoms at home. I only felt them when I was outside. So I'd go outside to go to work, and by that point I was on my way, and that was that. But these symptoms didn't clear up, and about a month later I go back to the doctor, and they said, well, we're going to do a heart scan, a blood test, and you go get an eye test, and we will see what's going on. The blood test came back fine, the heart scan came back fine, and my eyes were fine. So they said, well, it's probably labyrinthitis still. You just need to take more Circ, and you will you'll be fine. It'll take a bit of time. So this Circ drug that they gave me wasn't very useful. I didn't do a lot, and I continued for another month or so, and it still hadn't improved. And then I had another vertigo attack in January of this year, I was just sat at the table eating. Looking back on it, there were probably reasons for why I had the vertigo attack, which we'll get into later, but for that point it seemed like it came out of nowhere, and it was quite worrying at the time, but it only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes, and again I felt sick for about 4 hours afterwards, but went to bed, woke up fine. And then I started having more periods of vertigo. So the next one I had, I was asleep in bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night and completely thrown. The room was spinning around me. I had one at work for standing up too quick. I was bending down to put something on a shelf, and I stood up too quick, and that was one of the worst instances I'd had. So it was all quite worrying. I went back to the doctor and they said, well, we'll refer you to an ENT on the NHS, which until up to this day still hasn't happened. My appointment was cancelled and rescheduled until after the lockdown period, but they haven't rescheduled anything yet, so still waiting on that. I may still go just to see if I can get any more information, but really I kind of took it into my own hands after that point. So it's worth saying, straight after that, lockdown happened and I started working from home. And when I started working from home, the flat stopped being the comfortable, safe space and started being a place where I was really struggling with even just standing still. My feet felt spongy, especially on the right hand side of my body, and I could not really get a good kind of core balance just standing on the floor. Going outside was quite bad as well. I felt very anxious because the vertigo attacks had started happening more frequently. I was worried about having one outside. I haven't really had one outside up to this point, and I don't think I will now. I know more about this, but at the time it was really anxiety inducing. So I reached out to an ENT who spoke to me free of charge, which was really kind, and to be honest, their kindness allowed me to start kind of getting to the point where I could recover. They told me about a thing called triple PD, which is more of it's not psychological, it is completely neurological in nature, but it is the after effects of a balance or a vestibular issue kind of persisting because your brain has created new pathways that have adjusted to your lack of balance. In many ways, your lack of balance or your vestibular problem becomes your new normal, which is quite tough to unthink about. The main reason for that might be obsession, especially when you have a vestibular disorder, because there's really very few things in your life that are constantly happening all the time. Breathing is one, and I would say balancing is one. Even when you're sat down on a chair, you're balancing, your body is constantly thinking about balancing. So if it's not working, or not working how you expect it to, your body is constantly thinking about it not working. And I would obsess it because in my mind, I needed to work out the reason why I was having this problem in order to get better. So I would go through every single scenario, I'd write them all down. I had about 100 reasons for why I felt like this. Some of them scary, some of them less scary, but there was a constant anxiety there and a constant worry about what if it is something really bad, what if it is something really serious. You know, I thought about things that were potentially fatal. So the ENT I spoke to gave me some exercises to do, which did help in the long run. And to be honest, just speaking about a situation where I am making it worse by worrying about it, allowed me to go, okay, I need to stop dwelling on the details so much. Stop writing it down. I used to stare at the problem. So if the room was swaying, I would stare at it because I wanted it to stop. Look at it. But of course that made it worse. So I kind of started ignoring some of the symptoms, and they did actually get better. I felt a lot better, and according to my partner, she's saying that I kind of seemed to be better. She had to listen to me a lot, speaking about all my problems and going on and on and on and on and on. And her patience in this was just like incredible. And part of the reason why I've made it to this point now is because of her support and the support of anyone who would listen, basically. It really helped me through. So I start having vertigo attacks again after seeing this ENT. And that starts me to worry again, because in my mind, the triple PD symptoms do not include random vertigo attacks that come out of nowhere or are triggered by something physical like standing up too quickly, which happened 2 more times. So I did kind of think enough is enough. I'm not getting to see this this NHS referral, and there were times I was like out and freaked out because especially at the moment with the lockdown and queuing outside shops and supermarkets, I could not stand still in the queue without feeling this wobbling sensation, and probably was having panic attacks and not realizing it. So I eventually went to see a doctor. This was only a few weeks ago now, so we're getting quite up to speed. And they asked me if I had any hearing loss, and I said no, I don't think so. I did have ringing in my ears, in particular this one, but I didn't think I had hearing loss. They did a hearing test on me, and I did have hearing loss, low frequency in the right ear. The right hand side of my body is the side that is most affected by balance. It's my right leg that feels like it is softer and lighter than my left, which feels substantial and like it can hold me up. And there were other tests they did that proved that I was relying so much on the left side of my body, and also, and I'll get into this with the advice, that my eyes were doing a lot of the balancing for me. When you think about balance, you're thinking about inner ear, eyes, joints. So that's where they're all at this point. They said to have an MRI scan, which and like with the doctor, I had to pay for, but I was getting to a point where I was like, money is not as important as my health. I need to talk to a doctor. And to be honest, I received some support as well for paying for those. So it was really great, and I really appreciate that. I went for the MRI scan, which was scary, and the wait until I got the results, which was only a day later, was agonizing, because, as I said before, I had come up with all the worst case scenarios, and now they were like at my doorstep. Would I find out for sure that it was something lethal? And I was like writing off my life. I was like, I'm not going to do anything today because who knows what's happening tomorrow. Really dark places I went to. Needless to say, they came back fine. What had happened is they had found an infection under my mastoid bones, which are at the back of your ears, just here, and it looked like there had been quite an infection on this side, but that it had cleared up. So what has probably happened is that my balance nerves and stuff have been damaged, and my balance organs in my middle and inner ear have been damaged by something, and now they are not getting worse, but I haven't adjusted to them now. If I wanted to learn more, I could do a CT scan and find out what the real details were, but really, to be honest, I don't need to know that now. I know, and if I had a CT scan, I would also need to go into rehabilitation. So that's what I'm doing. Today I saw a physiotherapist in person who gave me more specific exercises and was able to talk about my symptoms in more detail with all the information we had. It seems like my vertigo comes from a visual overload, and that is why, or like a sensory overload, which is why I have had vertigo attacks more recently, because I'm spending all day staring at a computer screen in lockdown. Therefore my eyes are getting tired and can't cope. Standing up too quick, I'm going from one set of visual inputs straight to another without transition. I'm looking at one thing, I stand up quick, I'm looking at another thing. Sends my head into a spin, can't, doesn't understand where it is in time and space. There are other reasons, like you can explain them all. So to my mind now, if I recover and deal with the visual swaying and that kind of thing, which was also explained, my eyes are not keeping up with the motion of my head, or they're not really keeping a smooth motion either. They're kind of jutting, looking at things like that rather than like that. So it's why things feel like they are swaying, because things are coming in and out of focus really quick. And I also feel like sometimes I have this like frame skip when I'm looking, and there's like I'm looking here and now I'm here, like I don't have the smooth motion. So I've been given exercises to deal with that. I won't go into those too much because maybe I'll talk about them in another video, but it sounds from the research that I've done that most people's symptoms are slightly different, and the therapy you need to rehabilitate them or rehabilitate your balance is tailored to what you're suffering with. So you need to find out that. So I would talk to a doctor personally. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So both the doctor and the physio seem very confident that I'll be able to recover. The phrase 6 months was sort of thrown around at one point, so it might be that by the end of the year I am back to a new normal. But I think we're onto something, and I'll sort of explain why I think we're onto something now, and then this might relate to what you're dealing with or give you advice going forwards. So one of the main factors that I never really took into account until very recently is anxiety. Now, from hearing my story, you probably noticed various points in that where I was talking about being worried, having panic attacks, that kind of thing. Anxiety can make you feel worse, especially with dizziness. And I would find that there were massive differences in how far I could walk on my own and then how far I could walk with somebody else. Now, I wouldn't be holding on to them or anything, but just knowing they were there and therefore alleviating the fear that I was going to have a vertigo attack on my own in the middle of nowhere, I felt I could go further. So I really was able to, and I mean the vast differences, I was really able to go far. Couldn't walk to the end of my road on my own on some days. And then a few weekends ago, me and my partner walked 18 miles. It's crazy. I still felt the symptoms, but they didn't get so uncontrollably bad that I couldn't put one foot in front of the other because the floor felt it was moving so much. It was amazing. So doing more of that and facing the anxiety really helped me recover. And this is where that triple PD thing comes in again. I still don't know if I have it or not. I don't think we will know. But knowing to not look at the problem made me feel better, right? So the anxiety went down. Dealing with anxiety as well was also a lot about proving I could do stuff. So by walking further with somebody else, I was like, oh, you did walk 18 miles. You did that on your own. The person was there, but you did every footstep you took was on your own. So I would recommend, if you are in a place where the symptoms don't feel like they're getting better and that you are very worried about them, the first thing you probably need to address or can address is the fact that you are worried about it. And I would do that in a couple of ways. I've kind of said it already, I'll probably repeat myself. But one is set yourself a goalpost. And by that I mean, if you can only walk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, walk for 5 and 10 minutes every day. And then if you've done that for like a week or so, 2 weeks or so, walk for like 30 seconds extra. And see if you can build that in. And eventually you just keep moving that goalpost. And you find it easier, or at least I found it easier, to be like, I can now walk 10 minutes because I have been consistently walking 15 minutes. And the worry stops happening so early on. There was a petrol station down the road that was my go-to place for a few weeks, and then there was like a place beyond that. So yeah, that kind of brings me on to my second bit of advice, which is you need, and everyone says this, you need to stay active. You need to stay doing stuff, because otherwise your body forgets. You need to be always going outside and walking. Walking, I think, is the most essential thing you can do. You don't need to walk miles. You just need to keep doing it. And then, as I say, build that goalpost moving into it. That really helped me out. The next thing to do, I would say, personally, and I know this isn't as easy for some people as it is others, depends where you live, depends on finances, that kind of thing. Get the worst case scenario ruled out. If you're worrying about a worst case scenario, get it ruled out. Go for that MRI scan if you're able. If you live in the UK, it is very hard at the moment to see somebody without having to pay. So you may need to wait otherwise, but get the worst case scenario ruled out. I got the worst case scenario ruled out last week, and I have felt better since then, just for knowing. My symptoms have felt less, and I've gotten into a point now where I notice my symptoms, but I don't have the after dwelling on it. What I used to do is I used to go outside, have a wobble, have that feeling of someone pulling me back, which I don't really get anymore. It's weird how the symptoms change and develop over time. But feel something like that, and then think, oh wow, what is the reason for this? And I'll just spend the next 10 minutes like dwelling on it. Whereas now I'm like, I'll have a wobble or I'll feel off balance and I'll go, yeah, that's fine. I know what it is, it's fine. And I'll just move on, and I'm not going to think about it all the time. So if you're able to do that, I would really, really recommend it. The other thing I would suggest, and this is a sort of a twofold thing, there's two elements to this. Find other people who are going through the same thing. So there is other videos online that are like this one. There was one that was really, really inspirational by a lady called Sharon Hen, who you'll probably find in the top results if you search for anything vestibular related. She recovered and has lots of thoughts on it, and is also an admin on a Facebook group that I'm a member of called Vestibular Hope. And Vestibular Hope was a very good source of kind of reassurance, because I could ask any questions I had and people would kind of chime in and say, yeah, I've had this, or I haven't had this. You kind of realize through going on that website that everyone's symptoms are slightly different, and that's fine, that's normal. Don't worry too much about your symptoms not lining up, because it won't. Everyone's different. And to be honest, your symptoms probably won't line up with your symptoms from 2 months ago, because it changes. And recovery feels really weird because it doesn't go in a straight line. You have bad days, and sometimes your bad days can be as bad as your worst ever day. And it makes you feel like you're not getting better. But you keep going forwards, and the good days will start to increase and the bad days will be less frequent, or at least that's what I'm finding. But what I would say, and why I said this was twofold, is if you really wanted to, and it doesn't take much, you can find a corner of the internet that will tell you you're not going to get better. There are a lot of Facebook groups in particular that don't have the same positive outlook I found, and there's a lot of people on there who've had symptoms for a really long time and it's really getting them down, and you get this sense of hopelessness that things aren't going to get better. You will find that. I still believe you can get better. I still believe recovery is possible, and you don't need to worry about the negative stories. Only focus on the positive stories, because you want to get better. So you don't need to worry about the evidence that says that you can't, because there is evidence that says you can, and if that exists, then you can, and that's where we're aiming towards. We're aiming towards the positive recovery of it, and I believe that you can kind of get there. That's probably going to bring me on to my last point before I stop talking for this video. Don't view recovery as a backwards thing, and by that I mean if you think about a timeline, you were well at one point and you're not well now, and you want to get back to that time that you were well. You're not kind of doing that. You're not alleviating symptoms. It's not like a cold or something where you have the symptoms and then you get better. You are building back towards normal in most cases. I mean, if you have something like labyrinthitis and you've only had it for a couple of weeks, you're probably going to recover and it's going to be like a cold. But if your vestibular system is damaged, you have to relearn how to balance. And you know what, we've all done it. We've all learned how to balance. We all did it at a very young age. You're going to be relearning a lot of things that your body has sort of not taken for granted, but taken naturally too. So rather than trying to reverse a process, you're trying to build back up. This is you at 100%, and you've dropped down to about 50%, and now you've got to build back up and try and meet that point. And I know I've heard of people who say that they've kind of got like 98% of the way there and that it's fine. And in some ways that's kind of how it might work out, it seems. It seems like you might never get back to 100%, but you'll get like so close that you don't notice it, or that you notice it a small amount but it makes no difference. That's what you're trying to get to. It's sort of, that's how the recovery process works. So I've been given some exercises to do, and I am going to start retraining my eyes to work a little bit more fluidly. I'm also going to stop looking at computer screens. Computer screens are tiring my eyes out, and as I might have mentioned earlier in the video, my eyes were doing a lot of the work for me. So let my eyes calm down, let my eyes take the strain off them, start training them to do what they used to do. Also I've got some exercises to get my feet kind of firmly placed there as well, and we'll take it from there. But I believe that I will get better, or I'll get so close that I won't care, and I think anyone else can as well. So what I want to first of all do is say, if you've got any questions or any thoughts or anything, just let me know, message me. I have an Instagram account. I saw another video where the guy mentioned his Instagram account, and I thought that was quite good because it can show you kind of that I'm still doing stuff, I'm still active, and that I'm still fighting forwards. So do follow me on Instagram. I'll put the link in the description below, along with the videos that I've mentioned and the Facebook group. So for now, I think I've spoken for long enough. Give me your thoughts. I probably have a lot more, and maybe something a bit more structured next time round, but I'll probably do another one of these in a month and give you a kind of a check-in on how I'm doing, and we'll take the recovery process forwards. But until then, I hope you get better and that you start down your road of recovery as well.